Circling. Must be
Hello,
live.
everyone. Welcome. We're live. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Bill.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, happy hot day.
Yes,
Uh,
happy
The
Valentine's Day to all of you. And very happy to be here with you, with all of you. And this has started out to be a really, I don't know, I usually don't like Valentine's Day, or at least I didn't used to like it because it was almost like I felt obligated to get flowers and stuff, and now I totally love it. But I love it for a different experience. I'm not feeling like I need to get flowers. I'm being compelled. I'm being like, I went to Whole Foods the other day, a couple of days ago, up in Portland, Maine, and I walked in the store and I noticed 2 dozen roses for 24.99. I went, "Whoa, 2 dozen roses?" Walking in, I didn't pick them up. Went shopping. Lisa and I had lunch. Walking out, I looked back at the roses. They said, "Buy me, buy us." And so now I have these beautiful 2 dozen roses. I told Lisa, I said, "A dozen are for you and a dozen are for me." Because I love flowers.
yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to welcome everyone to chapter 14, and it's Wordsworth and the Longing for God. And someone, I forget who it was, that was really happy that you were going to be our guest on the show today, Andrea, because
Wow.
they said they love you and they love this chapter.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I did see on your website. Well, thank you, whoever you are. I love you too. And I'm happy to be here and share with everyone. This is a blast.
Yeah.
I know I have a very different style than other teachers that come on. And not that I'm a teacher. I just feel that I'm just this consciousness that loves to share.
Yes.
And we all have been given our own unique ways of viewing this world and sharing it with consciousness.
Hmm.
And so I enjoy all the different ways in which the readings are being shared. I really do.
Yeah.
And so I have had a similar feeling around. I don't even actually call it Valentine's Day. I just say Happy Heart Day. And it's like interesting that the ego would give one day out of the year to the heart.
Wait, are you saying heart or
Yes.
hot, like hot? Because
No, heart.
heart. So
It's my accent.
leaving the R out. I just want to make that clear for everyone. She's not saying hot. She's saying hot.
I'm saying heart.
Hot
I
and
have I have to work on that heart. My R is a AH in case
that's funny.
anyone's having problem translating me.
That's funny.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you for bringing that up. I'll be more careful
I
since
knew
it
what
is the
it was.
day.
At first I thought hot day, hot. Oh, hot, hot.
Yeah,
And then
my heart.
like a Boston hot.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. A Red Sox heart.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I have had a similar sense about it. I always felt like there's a have to, and I
Mm,
just feel that for me, if you want to call it Valentine's Day, to me, it's just every day is love,
mm,
and every day is a day to share my heart and to share what is becoming more and more aware of in this experience. And I thought that this chapter, well, it's really beautiful. Catherine Gaines said she really loved this chapter, and she brought out a couple of things on the Facebook page, which I had also highlighted in my. What don't I highlight? I should just dip it in yellow
Dip
or
in.
in red for my heart.
Catherine Gaines is here. Thank you for your comments, Catherine. And if you would like to share them on the board, or if you would like to call in and speak directly, that would be cool. Or if you just want to share the ones that you made yellow.
Well, I would thought it would be really beautiful, although we're going to go into the poem today and everything and explore this chapter, which is a nice continuation from what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And I also was noticing that in chapter 13, it started with the idea of the perspective of consciousness. It talks about perspective of finite mind, but it also, or the separated self, let me just say that. And but it started introducing this whole idea of consciousness perception, of how it's observing and aware of and knowing things. And that's continued on into this chapter as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there was, since it is known for a day of love, I thought, and I hadn't seen this, there was a little touch of it on page 117 of the last, I think it was in chapter 12. But on this chapter, in page 134, I wanted to read this paragraph. It's the third paragraph.
Okay.
It says, consciousness knows itself in and as the totality of experience. Even our darkest moods shine with the light of its knowing. This inability of consciousness to be, know, or become anything other than itself is the experience of love, which admits no separation, objectivity, or otherness. From the perspective of consciousness, creation is the manifestation of love.
Nice.
That's perfect for today. And you know, Bill, if you hadn't had that flu, we would be on a different chapter today. So it's chapter 14th, on the 14th, a day of love. And this explanation of love is just like, wow, this is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting that that we have to, that we must undo what we thought we were, which was less than everything,
Mm-hmm.
in order to realize what we truly are, which is still what we thought we were, and we're not. But
Okay.
but because we're not only that, because we're not finitely only that. We are everything, and that expression, or that Rupert would say refraction or modulation, or it's really just another it's another knowing. It's just it's an experience that is known, and being the knowing of it is just the higher place of looking. It's like nothing's missing, and there's no longer the limited experience, because it's the experience of the limited and the everything at the same time.
Right. Well, again, admits no separation, no other. And when he starts using the phrase from the perspective of consciousness, this is pointing us and drawing us deeper into that joining of that oneness. It's not just talking about from, the separated self's point of view. It's really now introducing how consciousness is experiencing itself in this experience.
Yes.
That's my feeling of this.
Mm-hmm.
And and I've always loved the idea that, I'm in God's dream. And according to this, from what it says, like I created, I manifested into this world, into form, which is the creativity of love. And we can say, "Oh, I'm love." It's like, yes, I am. And when God goes to sleep, she dreams, as Rupert says on page 116, the world into existence. So I know I'm kind of flipping around from different chapters here, but this is what I love about Rupert, and you had mentioned it a number of times too, Bill. It's like when he's making a point, he makes the point, he makes the point, he makes the point, and it's throughout all the chapters, just in like how this knowing shines in the mind, the eye, and he also introduces into this chapter. We've talked about amness and isness, and now we have I-ness.
Yeah.
Which is in here, which is beautiful. So let's want to look in the, I was going to say from the longing point of view.
Let's pause for a moment because I'm not seeing anything else on the chat board except that Bill Price had to reload to unfreeze. Are you guys seeing and hearing us just fine? Can you give us a heads up on the chat? Just let us know that the audio and the video is working okay. How is it? Okay. So we have someone that's on the phone feature. Roxanne, welcome on the phone side. I was wondering okay. Catherine says yes. Good. Okay. Thank you all. And we have the phone feature is working. I was wondering about, did I mess up on the link on the phone? Because there was nobody over there. And now we have someone on the phone feature. Okay, good. And is the audio good for the level of the audio for both me and for Andrea? Is the audio volume good? I don't mean to distract us.
Jacqueline says I can hear and see fine.
Okay, good.
Hendrik says okay. Yeah.
Yes, and I do like the way you brought in some of the relative ideas, some of the content that Rupert has in previous chapters, and into this whole thing, because he does make a point, and then he makes sure that you got it, or at least he does his best.
Yes, and it's interesting because sometimes it's worded exactly the same, and sometimes it keeps getting refined, I find.
Yeah.
And so we do have to talk about the longing for God. Yes. And the poem. And sometimes when I get on, I kind of get into what's so much fun.
When you look at the chapter, when I look at the title of the chapter, Wordsworth and the Longing for God, I guess that's what Wordsworth was known for, and the poem is known for. The poem looks to me like it's an entry. It's like a poem about an entry into time and consciousness limiting itself into time, and then he goes back and forth with his poem is beautiful, and then Rupert unfolds he unpacks the poem into really clear understanding. I love it.
Yes, because I wouldn't necessarily feel from my own experience that I would be longing for God, as long as my sense is always longing for truth and love and peace and happiness. To me, it's all encompassed in what truth is. And in fact, he actually mentions Wordsworth in on page 122 before we ever get to this chapter. He begins talking about this poem. Yeah. So this is how he keeps bringing things along for us. And it was a really nice introduction to it. And it says, this is what Wordsworth meant when he said, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. Thus, the true waking up is not to wake up as body in a world. It is to wake up as consciousness, knowing its own infinite, indivisible reality alone.
Yes.
See, that's even a more comprehensive in a chapter before than he is, as he's explaining it, even in this chapter. So I always make my little notes. I hope that this is helpful for other people too. Sometimes if you read the chapter and then you go back a couple of chapters, it actually makes the chapter more clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, Bill, that's total agreement with. We're waking up into our true consciousness. No time is consciousness unconscious. Or And so that's what this I-ness is. It's the I am, which is that light that's in the mind that we all the separated selves know themselves as I.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how most of us, most of conscious, of being conscious in a body, most of us can't see the self-awareness of experience until it's really pointed out to us in a clear way. That's what I found to be the most the most uh, well, the pointing of Rupert and the way he points to the experience of awareness, and then the self inquiry is just so simple, but it's also very difficult for a lot of people to see that way right away. Even in his retreats, I've sat with people who would sit there for days and still not be able to see their own awareness. And I feel that that's changing, but I also see that it's not something that everyone is ready for. And I really feel that the answer is because we prefer judgment and guilt instead, and judgment and guilt put a veil over the experience of knowing what we are. Because if we know ourselves, or excuse me, if we know others as being guilty, then we believe that that's a reflection of our own mind. And so we're insisting that we stay finite, and therefore we can't see through the veil into and as the infinite.
Well, I think Rupert does address that in this chapter as well, though. And it says, that the mind receives numerous, as this is on page 137 for anybody who went out. It's on the first page. Receives numerous hints as to the source of the peace and happiness for which it longs. Although these hints of correct guidance usually pass. So part of, as you're saying, we actually would, some would actually choose a judgment. For me, it's like, without, I don't know, without having been exposed and having good guidance, and in this book is guidance, great guidance to help us notice things that we may have overlooked before, and having, a wonderful, Rupert is that guidance for us at this point in bringing that awareness to us. But I don't really feel that if you don't know that there is a choice, then you just stay with what is. And so I don't know if people are really choosing judgment as much as they don't know until they start having exposure or being asked the question, are you aware? Or wondering if there's something else. As this chapter also talks about, we get to a point where you've tried everything, read everything, and the mind just at some point comes to a point saying, I must be doing something wrong, because I can't hold on to happiness. I can't hold on to this great feeling. I can't seem to hold on to love, because the way that it's approaching it is it's going outside of itself, because that's what it's been taught. Not realizing, like it says, we are that creation of love.
Yeah.
The world is a creation and a manifestation of love, because it's creativity.
Yeah.
And all that comes, even doing this together, this is creativity, talking on the computer. Somebody had this creativity, love. So this can come together. It's, if we see everything as it's love bringing us all together. And that feels so deeply good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And good there's a word that doesn't even touch what I'm feeling, but I'm sure that your understanding, although I'm not being particularly clear with my words, I find words actually get in my way. And I guess you noticed that.
Well,
I can't.
Rupert speaks to these different experiences that bring us as a portal into the awareness of the self. Even he talks about desire, is but a seeking for the happiness that we are in, that is inherent in our being, in our creativity. He talks about, it's the desire to buy things. When we desire to buy things, we're looking for, we can't wait to have it, and we buy it. It's like it's awesome in that moment, and then the next like 30 minutes or the next day, it's like, oh yeah, got that. Now I'm looking for something else. And
Mm-hmm.
he tells us that the same experience is found through meditation, through prayer, through sexual intimacy, through all of these different, or even surrender. Even when you come to the point where I remember when I was 27 years old, I was desperate in my desire to want to be a good, I had a 2 year old child. I was a single parent with a 2 year old daughter, and I was on drugs, and I was like just a mess. But I came into a point where I was so desperate and so desiring to be a good dad, a good father, that I got on my knees and I surrendered to the God of my understanding in saying, if you're there, if you're real, I need your help. And it was only within a couple of weeks of that sweet surrender on my knees where I never took drugs again. And I quit alcohol for over 20 years. And I got a handle on being a good dad and raising my 2 year old, raising her into being the woman that she is. And so that was my sweet surrender. And it happens that there's so all of those portals that Rupert speaks about in this chapter that brings you, it's just a portal into the experience of, it's even more than the I, because he talks in the first or second page, he talks about, and I wasn't aware of this, that I, just I, is the entry into time, and then it's the I am where it starts to self discover the the amness or the I amness. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really aware until I read this chapter that the I was looking for an identity in time.
Right. It says all separate selves know themselves as I. It's a subliminal recognition of the fact that at the heart of all infinite minds shines the same infinite indivisible consciousness of which all apparently selves, are put are but a partial reflection.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it says the first true thing we ever say is "I am."
And that's why it feels so good. That and
Mm,
that's why when you are in a little bit of a meditative state, I am. It feels like home. It feels like it's closer. It's just more intimate, and I don't mean personal intimate. It's just more. It seems closer to the being. And then, of course, they say that God is, and we cease to speak. As you were saying, we have trouble with words sometimes. And that is why all of the great writings are talking about being quiet and being silent. And awareness and presence and beingness is found in the silence.
yeah, when the end of thinking comes, there was this quietness. He also, we talked about in this chapter that, when we come and we have uh, something will happen that will kind of shock us, or through loss or accidents or different kinds of things that will occur. It's at that point where the mind just stops and you are in complete silence. And when you're in that complete silence and you're in complete surrender, and used the word earlier, in order to really know our true self,
Hmm.
which is the I am, is the true self,
Yeah.
we have to surrender the very one who's looking for the self, which is the separated self goes looking for itself, and in the end has to actually give itself up and surrender that in order to come into this beautiful manifestation of love called the world.
Yeah.
And Andrea or Bill or Catherine or all of us to have the fullest experience of that. That's what we're longing for. We're longing to feel and to experience everything in a much deeper and intimate way. I mean, because this love is closer to us than the breath. I mean, there is nothing between us.
Yes.
And we keep seeing that. And this whole idea of I and I am is the portal. I mean, as I was reading, I said, well, that he introduced that in chapter 6 on page 57. It was in chapter 7 on page 173, chapter 8 on 87, chapter 10, 99, chapter 14 on 130. I mean, this idea of portal has been coming along.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I notice different times when I go back, I go, I read that and I got it, but I didn't hold on to it. It's like the things that we seek in that we want to hold on to, you know, whether you say go buy something and then it doesn't feel good. We're reading and we're not really taking it all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back and Rupert knows this. Rupert's awareness is aware of this and how it happens. That's the gradualness of it. That's the progression of it. Mm-hmm. And in the last chapter, we're talking about it as, you know, the camera lens is opening and closing, you know, and getting really crystallized in this physicalness. And in this chapter, it's really talking about, you know, the veils as opposed to the lens. Yeah. And that we are really the closest to where we really want to be, not in this state, but in the deep sleep state.
Isn't that interesting to, when he describes the lens of being more crystallized and better focused, that we're actually more distant from our truth, from the truth of what we are, when we're more crystallized in the density of form, mm-hmm. that we're less in touch with. We've actually increased the veil, so to speak, mm-hmm. from formless, from the infinite. We've moved ourselves. We're more asleep in that. More focused, you know, like I'm like this totally intense person. I've got my focus on my business or my family or my animals or my hobbies, whatever it is. As I'm totally focused and intense on that, I've moved myself away from the I am.
Yeah, that's that in the poem where he's talking about, you know, the birth of but asleep and forgetting. You know, it's the opposite of whatever. It's like looking at your, you know, if you put words in a mirror, they're backwards. And I always keep seeing this experience of being in the world. There's all these beautiful little crumbs and pieces and hints of everything is saying, do you see yourself yet? Do you see yourself? There you are. There you are. And it's like, no, I'm over here looking at that, man. And God's going, do you see yourself yet? You're right here, honey. Come on. You're right here. And we get so we focus ourselves in these places. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing, you know, but we're always talking about how everything's the mirror. It's just like if you put words in a mirror, they're backwards. And we, you know, talking about being conscious and being in the fullness of that consciousness, which is, you know, we see it as sleep. It's more conscious, and more conscious feels like waking up. So mm-hmm. we've got it backwards, just like the mirror with words on it. And if we can look at the world and see that it's showing us it's mirroring us in this most beautiful way. But we're overlooking that.
I want to make a point on page 131 in the second paragraph. Rupert is talking about Wordsworth, and he says, Wordsworth says, not in entire forgetfulness, and he says, however, in the early stages of this emergence, he's talking about the emergence from the coming into time, and he says, in the early stages of this emergence, fresh out of infinite consciousness, the separate self is still saturated with its fragrance. So this would be at the early stages of life, and that is saturated with God's presence. Hence, Wordsworth says, not in entire forgetfulness, mm-hmm. and not utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. As the finite self starts to crystallize out of God's infinite being, it retains the memory of its own eternity embedded within it. And that's the Holy Spirit. That's the essence of the Holy Spirit. That's the spark of what never leaves us. And I feel that that becomes available at those moments of intense surrender or intense of just an exploration of the infinite. Like Rupert says he points to prayer or meditation or some kind of event or sexual intimacy or some kind of a desire that is met, that there's that moment of the glimpse of identity, the moment of the glimpse of the infinite. And I just love how Rupert really tracks, even in his own language. He will go down in history as a profound prophet because his words are prophetic.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels to me is, um, I don't know if anybody would be offended by this because I certainly don't mean it that way, but I always talking about the second coming of Christ or the second coming of Jesus or whatever, that, he's going to come back into the world. I'm not saying that that's what literally was meant, but that the message was going to become clearer. This message, as Rupa says in the Vedantic teachings, is thousands and thousands of years old, probably even gone experienced by Jesus as well. And it's coming back into this moment in time of these teachings of this non-dualistic, and it's not colored by religion, it's not colored by things, it's just very direct and very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And even though as you're reading it, sometimes because the mind's trying to understand this. The mind will never understand it because finite only will ever know finite, and infinite always knows infinite. So the mind is trying to get this, is trying to understand it, is trying to get to itself. And it's not my experience that I experience as I have these moments of just beautiful clarity, like something is brought into my awareness, not from my thinking. It's like I can read this and then I can go about my business and do things. And all of a sudden something will come out of my mouth as maybe I'm just even having a conversation with my I am. And there's such beauty and clarity. And sometimes I go back and tape different things and I'll say, Andrew, why do you think you don't have this? You got it. You are that.
Mm-hmm.
But the mind is still trying to figure it out. And I don't believe that it's something that can be figured out by the mind, because the mind is always going to come up against its own limits.
Mm-hmm.
And this is unlimited experience. And so it's like, how do you do that? It's wondering. It's like, well, you're not going to do what I am.
He gives a great example of what happens when we have an early morning practice or an evening practice. And I don't know about you, but most of the beings that I know have the morning practice, have a morning practice of being, of being present, of being still, of doing a meditation experience, of just finding that. And I love how he describes why that space is so it's so palpable, because we haven't really crystallized our experience in the density of the person. We're still available and open in our awareness, so that we have the fuller and more profound experience as our creative infinite self. I just love that. I don't do it as much and definitely not as longer at nighttime. At nighttime, I'm actually doing more what Jenny was talking about a couple weeks ago, and I'm also definitely doing Jenny. If you're watching, I haven't seen you post on the board, and you'll probably be watching it later if you're not with us. But I definitely have been doing what Jenny suggested that she uses, or she described what she uses when she wakes up in the morning. And that is just to, before I get out of bed in the morning, it's still dark. I like to get up about 5:15, 5:30. But now I'm just sort of being present. I'm just making sure that I come into a realization of presence and awareness before my feet hit the floor, where I never used to do that. So I'm just doing that as an experiment. Thank you so much, Jenny Beal. I love you, and happy Valentine's Day to you.
And she is here.
Oh, she is. Oh, you're
Yeah,
here.
she sent you a note.
So thank you for that practice, because I'm using it, and I also I love it when I'm reading what Rupert's doing, suggesting, and I'm actually doing it before I read about it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So cool.
I love the mornings. I feel the most available in the mornings.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun over this uh, last fall and into this winter playing with the idea. We were talking about, how there's no states of consciousness and there's no layers of consciousness. From the perspective of consciousness, it's a continuum, and
Yes.
it's all consciousness.
Yes.
And and what's interesting, because he's talked about waking and sleeping and deep sleep, dreaming and waking and deep sleep, is I actually really was working on, can I have that experience? And so going to bed at night, just laying there, and then I would just get really quiet, which I typically do before I go to sleep anyway. And I just check in with myself and sort of just do like a little scan. And I could feel, because this is about to come into yourself is about letting go, surrender, and relax, and just relax into it. Not try to get there, but just relax into it. You like get rid of the doing. So I
Mhm.
was just paying attention, and I noticed that I actually have never experienced going to sleep. I can lay there, and I keep trying. I've been playing around with this, but just to lay there quietly, with my eyes closed, and I can feel my body letting go in different places, or I notice the position of my hands, or if my ankles are crossed, or however I happen to be laying there. Because it's just I don't say how I'm going to lay down. I just lay down, and wherever that is, it is. And then checking in with that, and I notice this relaxation. I notice the letting go, and I'm would smile to myself, and probably on my face too if I know me. It's laying there smiling. Well, here you go, here you go, and I keep saying it to myself. But I never actually ever had the experience of actually falling asleep. I had the experience of beginning the process, but never falling asleep, and I think that's pretty fun. And
Yeah.
then waking up in the morning, I'm not going, okay, it's time to get up. And I don't use clocks anymore. I just tell myself when I need to get up, and that's when I get up. And I look at the clock to just see if I did it. Can I do this? Just playing with what can I do without using the things in the world, and how much of that can I just tell myself and just have it happen.
Yeah.
And to wake up is the same experience for me. I don't make a decision to wake up. I just noticed that, oh, there's my body again. Oh, my head is, and then I'm noticing what position I'm in. And I sort of come into the world and go out of the world in the same way.
Hmm.
But I never had the experience of, oh, gee, I'm going to wake up now and have that experience, or I'm going to go to sleep now and have that experience.
Yeah.
And then as I'm asleep, there doesn't seem to be that experience either, because that's the nothingness, which is
Yeah.
so peaceful and great.
I like the ideas that you're presenting also, and I like the idea of just of being aware of the thoughts, of the feelings, of the ideas that are presenting themselves, and resting in the awareness of those activities, resting and just being aware of even the desire to be aware, just being aware of that, just really being noting that. And it's great, and that's also, I think it's helpful in our practice in the remembering of our true identity. And I'm going to take a couple of the comments on the chat board before we get too far along. And I have a question that's a really good question I want to bring to the room from someone that wrote in an email. And Annika said, once we realize what we really are, there is even no longer I consciousness and the limited. It is revealed to be only I, the ever present being. Yes, thank you for that. And also, Annika, when I was reading the first chapter again, and I was looking at the where he talks about the portal and which the infinite consciousness passes in the one direction, and then it assumes a finite mind, and then it goes back into this to the opposite direction when it assumes its infinite self again. I thought of your doorway, and I'm definitely going to use that drawing. I'm going to make it up, or I'm going to try to do a keynote drawing in my talk in San Francisco next week. I'll be presenting at the Course in Miracles conference, and I'm going to use your doorway. I hope you don't mind. I'll tell them that this is from Annika from the Netherlands, and but this is I'm gonna borrow your portal doorway image. It was great. And then Annika also mentions here, from my point of view, nothing is ever veiled. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I seem to be veiled, but it always myself playing at being veiled. So it all depends on what we take ourselves to be. Yes. Amen. Thank you for that. And Catherine McGinnis says to fall deeper and deeper in love with yourself, softening the mind and seeing one as such a beautiful expression of awareness. Yes. Thank you, Catherine. That was awesome. And then Bill Pierce or Price or William Price says a teacher told me that the second coming will not be a single man, but more like bunches of grapes.
That would be us.
That's funny. Well, Jesus actually does have a very clear description of what the second coming is in A Course in Miracles. And this is actually the second coming. It's
Yes.
the awakening
It's not
from,
coming. It's here.
yeah, it's right here. And
Yeah.
but it's what the Christians, the religious uh, ideas brought as the second coming of Christ, like Jesus is going to come back on this white horse and like pow, pow, but it's not that at all.
No.
And this is the second coming. It's the awakening, the remembering of the consciousness of what it truly is. And it's not, it doesn't exclude anyone or anything. Everything
And
is.
that's what I meant by, I feel that Rupert is, spearheading this message again and sort of resurrecting it into
Yes.
consciousness again, but with his books and his videos and his workshops and us coming together to have this. We're we're falling asleep. We're not waking up. The awakening is going.
Annika, yes, knowledge is structured in consciousness, which means that meaning is different in different levels of consciousness, relative and absolute. That's David Spector. And then Annika says, what I am discovering, David, is that there really is no level of what I am, just the one infinite, indivisible being. Yeah, I totally get that. Annika totally is an embodiment of that understanding and that consciousness. And Jenny says, great to hear that you are trying this. Oh, thank you, Jenny. Annika, you are right. There are no levels from Jenny Beal to Annika. There are no levels or states of consciousness. David says, Annika, yes, that is true, a true view. Unfortunately, 7.2 billion people don't quite see it this way. Yeah.
But they all calling themselves I, so they will.
Yes, well, there's only one mind of
Yeah.
God. There's only one mind of consciousness, and even though it doesn't look like it, maybe in this moment, that's only just perception still. The truth is that we never left the infinite self that we are. Annika says, I have also been doing that, Jenny. Cool. And then David says, we experience going to sleep clearly, but we forget that experience every time. Yeah, isn't that funny? That's really crazy. Annika, to stay aware of being aware while going to sleep or waking up. Yes, thank you.
That's
And,
what I'm doing.
and Annika says, it's my drawing, but Rupert's doorway example. Yes, well, you gave me a great idea. I love that image because that image takes the words and it gives it to the, a lot of us have a better, we connect more with image, with an image, a drawing. And I use drawings all the time in my talks because it helps to sort of, it provides a structure, or it provides,
A little bridging, maybe.
yeah, people
Yeah.
are, some people are more visual learners and some are more uh, auditory and some are kinesthetic, and so we all get this connection in a different way. Images really are more, they more speak to my, and that's probably the builder in me, and looking at blueprints and engineering drawings and things. I like images, so that was very helpful to me. Thank you for that. And then I want to get to the question. It's a really great question. It says, and it's from Deb. It says, I understand that awareness slash consciousness slash love are what we are, and that we are not our thoughts, sensations, feelings, and perceptions. But awareness, and here's the but awareness seems to have a love and peace quality associated with it, or better said, it is that. All that's totally perfect. I agree with that. She says, what role do our feelings have in awareness? What roles do our feelings have in awareness? And if you guys want to type on the board what you think, what your answer is, I'll ask Andrea, what's your answer to this question?
Well, feelings to me, I mean, the whole perception of creating form is to, again, we're going to, once we come into manifestation, what consciousness is doing is, in order for consciousness to reclaim its innate happiness, it has to go through a reversal. So of the process that takes place. And it says the reversal is the de-localization of awareness, in which the mind gradually does. So for me, using feelings, it brings, feelings are it's to me, feelings are the one place that most people do not want to spend any time, unless it's a good feeling. But that's because we have judgments about feelings. If you could see feelings, every feeling as neutral, every feeling has equal, no, there's not good feelings and bad feelings, there's just feelings. And feelings, for me, have been very important in helping me realize things that are coming into my awareness. Feelings like, emotional feelings, feelings also as the sensation feelings too. I think they kind of go together.
Coming into your awareness.
It helps heighten the awareness.
So the heighten the awareness.
Yes.
So are you saying that awareness becomes more aware?
No, I'm just saying that at the I that is passing back to source, right? It's going in another direction. So for me, sometimes when the I is having the experience of retrieving itself and going home, that journey that this journey that we're on in the other direction, when I can have a moment where my seemingly physical form perceives like I understand something, there's a feeling that goes with it, and then there's like this breakthrough. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that there are ways, I mean, why create thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and sensations if God's intention wasn't for us to use them as little breadcrumbs to find our way back home?
Well, that's a perception I don't share. I don't
Okay.
think that God created perception. I think that um,
No, but
it
we experience it.
it's a sleep in perception, and it's a modulation of 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 what God is in my mind. It's
Hmm.
not it's not the it's still a limited expression of the infinite. And for me, the answer to what feelings play, and I'm going to read the board and see what others said in just a second. But for me, feelings actually do two things. They do what you said a second ago, in that they heighten awareness. But I think what they do is they bring a they give another flavor, or they give awareness, a feeling experience is noted by awareness,
Hmm.
A, and B, feelings actually help help me to see where I have located myself as a finite being. If I've located myself in the attention of the experience, or am I, and it's feeling allows me to note that, and to assume my truth, assume the identity of the infinite, rather than being pulled in the direction of the feeling with unnecessary attention. That's my take on how feelings are helpful for us. And I'm going to read what the board says real quick. There's a lot of comments on this. Jenny's, let's see. Arthur said consciousness expressing itself through form. And Jenny said feelings are simply another form of experiencing, like everything else. They are made out of consciousness.
Hmm.
David says feelings are a subtler aspect of intelligent or discrimination, so they have more of the qualities of the infinite than do thoughts. Arthur says it's my resistance to feelings that is the cause of pain and suffering, not the feeling itself.
Hmm.
Monica says feelings are an expression of its potential, of its potential. I can be anything when contemplating feelings, or diving in, or taking them into myself. They are revealed to be made of what I am. Okay. There are no real divisions in experiencing. There's nothing more subtle than anything else. That is just superimposition. I like that very much. Catherine, feelings once beyond the mind's feeling, which is always about separate self, has a very full and expansive expression. Toward that, toward that has no lines of beginning. Uh, has a very full and expansive expression toward that, has no lines of beginning. And then Annika says that Rupert explained it so clearly that distancing ourselves of anything that I am hurts. Good one. Not the feeling itself. It can be pretty challenging to discover that and not run.
Well,
Oh,
that's what I'm saying, that all feelings, if you could, they're all equal. They're all neutral in the sense that there's not something that you shouldn't feel. They're all of them. My point is to be with all of them, and all of them help you
yes.
in this journey to feel the difference between separation. We can feel separation. We can also feel that's what this longing is, and we talked about it earlier. This wanting to merge
Yes.
and have our focus so intently merged. And Rupert uses sexual intimacy as a way that the whole focus is so focused that this merging is like this. That's a sense of oneness that we seek. So the feelings are sort of like a little GPS for us to kind of get that sense of our own loving self.
Yes. Yeah.
And to love, is to me is all those, anytime I'm going to not feel something, that's like saying there's a part of me that I can't love. That's why when I want to sit with all the feelings and explore all of them on the other side of these feelings, if we want to just conceptualize it from that point of view, that you come to that place of realizing that no, I'm not that, and I'm okay. I can feel that. I can live through the feeling. I can still be okay because love is going to be right there with me. And so to me, it's just coming to that place of being with all of it, because anytime I don't want to feel a feeling, I'm saying that there's a part of myself that I don't want to know or that I don't want to love. And that again is separation, and that hurts. And if you don't spend time with the feeling, if a feeling is there to be felt. So
Mhm.
feel it.
Mhm.
It just wants to be felt. If you don't feel it, it's going to hang out long enough. It's going to revisit you again, and it's going to come back and say, "Are you ready to feel me yet?" Because there's a gift in it.
Well, there is, as long as you don't identify yourself solely as the feeling. If you identify yourself as a
Yeah.
feeling, the feeling is then
No.
you're staying completely ignorant of your infinite self, your infinite being. And feelings, I think they're an expression. They're just an
Mm-hmm.
expression. I love the answers that came on the board because I think most of what everyone said is correct. And the feelings are what allow us to experience the finite and the infinite, because feelings allow us to experience joy, and somehow there's a quality, and I want to call it a feeling quality in awareness. There's a feeling quality that gives me just this presence of peace, and this total, I'm completely content, and have in the clarity of being, in the knowing of being aware. I have I love that. I mean, I think there's a feeling quality to it. And so I don't think it's actually uh I don't think it's something that we don't want. I think if you were anytime I've seen Rupert teaching, he always brings you back to the truest and the highest uh, identity of what you are, which is awareness, which is the awareness. So I think that really is the place. It's like there's that thing in the course that says nothing real is threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So always coming back to the experience of being, not
Mm-hmm.
even not even the I. But I mean, none of those things are wrong or bad, and feelings are definitely neutral, as you said, but always coming into the assuming the knowing of experience is where my safety lies. It's where my presence lies. It's where peace is. That peace is that surpasses understanding.
And so the substance of everything is consciousness. There's nothing but consciousness. So the substance of which everything is made out of is this manifestation called love, which is where we started, right? And this anything that's in manifestation is love, and that is all love's consciousness. That's what we are. Even what do you say? Even the substance of a feeling
Of
is love's
course,
consciousness.
yes, of
So
course.
it's all
There's
love. It's
nothing
all consciousness. There's nothing else that it could possibly be.
Yes.
We have fears that it's something else or that we're something else, and those kinds of things come up. But that's what we've come to believe. But we're in the process of undoing that. And so that's why I say, yes, have the feelings and have the thoughts, watch them come and go. The thing about the world is all things are temporary.
Hmm.
And everything is made out of the substance of love's consciousness.
We have
So,
reached our hour, and this has been a great show. David Spector has a couple of great comments on the board. We're not going to have time to address them. So, David, either put them on Facebook or we'll look at them again next week. And next week, we're going to have Kimberly Cartwright back, and we're going to be looking at chapter 15. It is the shared medium of mind. I can't wait to get into this chapter next week. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Andrea, for being our guest host,
oh, thank you for having me,
and
all of you.
thank you, Roxanne, for joining us on the phone feature, and all of you for joining us live and the video replays. Thank you for joining us by replay. I love all of you. Happy Valentine's, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and also next week is going to be on Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Wednesday,
Mhm.
and same time, but we're going to be on the 20th instead of the 21st next week. So mark your calendar. Bye, everyone. I love you.